Defend yourself against DDoS attacks by hiding your true IP address with ExpressVPN, and visit my custom link expressvpn.com/ghilliemaster in the description to find out how you can get an extra 3 months free. In the upcoming summer DLC for GTA Online, one could assume that the explosive cannons of the Lazer and Hydra are likely to get a nerf due to this post Rockstar made on their newswire a little bit ago. In response to your feedback, we are also evaluating potential future adjustments, including rebalancing certain aerial vehicles to help protect bystanders in free mode. And since then, there's been a lot of discussion amongst the community as to what they're going to do with the nerf, how they're going to nerf them. Well, in this video, we're going to explore that topic with a few concepts that I have put in the game just to see what a laser nerf could look like, and how each of the concepts would change the game in different ways. But first, let's discuss the current cannons and why Rockstar are likely going to be nerfing them. They're just too powerful. At the end of the day, that's really all it comes down to. I'm sure many of you have been spawn trapped by a jet before, maybe even a thermal jet, and you know, against a thermal jet in particular, you can't do anything against that. You die by splash damage the moment you spawn in. If you look at the stats, the blast radius of each cannon shot is a value of 5, and each shot does 500 explosive damage, which is more than enough to kill a player in one shot. But when you take into account the laser shoots 2 cannons simultaneously, your blast radius is about 75% greater than 5 actually, because the 2 cannons' blast radius overlap with each other. Which also technically means you're doing 1000 damage per shot because it fires 2 cannons at the same time you press the fire button once. And they also shoot at 1500 RPM, so very rapid. Now, if we compare this to bombs from other aircraft, bombs have a blast radius of 6, which is actually a smaller area than the cannons because it's not doubling up like the cannons are. And they also deal the same damage as one cannon shot at 500. You are also limited to only 50 bombs per flight, they have travel time, and you can only drop 5 at one time as opposed to being unlimited and hit scan. Based on this knowledge, there's not an argument in the world you can make to prove that they are not objectively overpowered. We're talking about a machine gun from a jet doing more damage than bombs dropped from planes. Bombs. Machine guns should not have equal firepower to freaking bombs. And all these stats are straight from the in-game files. It's not made up at all. I know the common defense of the cannons is to just shoot the Lazer and Hydra down with explosive rounds, bro. They don't have armor or countermeasures. But here's the thing about that people don't realize. The same counters that exist for the Lazer and Hydra are also counters for every other aircraft in the game. And those other aircraft do not have those same explosive cannons that the Lazer and Hydra do. And if your argument is countermeasures, well, countermeasures for jets aren't really needed anyways because they can outrun missiles either way, so they're just really a bonus. Like if you gave me a pyro that didn't have countermeasures and a pyro that did, they'd perform the exact same. The countermeasures aren't a make or break. Only on helicopters do countermeasures help out a good amount because otherwise they're kind of prone to lock-on rockets. But to say that because the laser takes one less explosive round than the other planes, it deserves to have extreme explosive rapid-fire cannons is just wild. So we've established why the cannons need a nerf. Now let's get into the 3 potential concepts that I've come up with. The first one is to just take the gun stats from the B11 and put them on the Lazer and Hydra, so the same fire rate, damage, blast radius, just on a different jet. And the stats compared to the current explosive cannons would be as follows. The damage would be reduced from 500 to 250, so it would now take 2 shots on a player to kill them. The blast radius would be toned down to 2 from 5, and the fire rate would be drastically reduced to 480 RPM. However, even with a carbon copy of the B11 cannons, stat-wise, the version on the Lazer is still better because there are 2 cannons firing instead of 1 on the B11. So this is a bit more lethal than the B11 cannons are, and this absolutely works as a sufficient nerf. You're not going to be able to just spray and pray for kills with this. Hitting a target on foot would be a lot more challenging. Dive bombing likely wouldn't even be possible at all because dive bombing usually requires spraying a small area before having to pull up right away. There's not much time to pinpoint an accurate shot like there would be for a regular strafe. To me though, I think this is kind of unimaginative and kind of makes the aircraft lose its uniqueness because at this point it just basically feels like the B11. So to me, the other concepts that I go over in this video are better options, but I still wanted to cover this one since a lot of people will just say to give the Lazer and Hydra the B11 guns. It works, and I wouldn't really complain if they did decide to go this route because it is a good nerf for it, but I think there's better options. Like this next one, which is to keep the rate of fire of the laser cannons, but the blast radius and damage of the B11 guns. So looking at the stats now, we're keeping the same rate of fire as the current cannon, but just decreasing the blast radius and damage. And that looks a little something like this. Going and using this on the different cars just driving along the road, it still feels like the laser cannons and still keeps that same identity the cannons have with the super fast fire rate and the explosions, but you will notice a difference in the blast radius. And since the blast radius and damage are the two biggest issues right now with the cannons, I think this would work out very well for a nerf. I unfortunately can't really test this in a true scenario on foot with actual players, but I suspect that with the lowered blast radius and damage, you're gonna have to tighten up your aim against targets on foot in order to hit them. So dive bombing will again be less effective. You can still spray, but you don't have that massive AoE blast radius to rely on anymore. If you don't hit a shot that is basically right on or right next to the person you're trying to kill, you're just gonna miss. It's hard to say how thermal vision use with this will be and how effective that might still be, but rest assured, it would be a lot harder to use than it is now. You can say that much. And to really showcase the blast radius change, I hopped in the Hydra and tried to shoot close to cars, and just look at how close I have to get in order for the car to blow up from the cannon fire here. I have to pretty much be on top of the car or a few inches away for the damage to proc. Now let's compare that to the current cannon in this parking lot. Notice how I don't even have to land my shots close to the cars for all of them to just blow up as I shoot the cannon in a line. And this car that I blew up right here is a perfect example of just how big of a margin of error you have with these guns. Just rewarding piss poor accuracy, shooting way to the left and still blowing up the vehicle. For those who like to dogfight in the laser, this also wouldn't affect anything really, because you're still going to blow up enemy lasers or other aircraft quickly. You probably wouldn't even be able to tell the difference actually, because mathematically the time to kill is doubled because the damage is halved. But what's double of 0.001 seconds, or in other words, an instant kill? It's still a relatively instant kill. So for this version of a nerf, I feel it targets the things that need changing very well, while not making it entirely useless and keeping some of its original identity. And for the final concept here, this one involves completely taking out the explosive factor of the cannons, which I know scares people because for some reason whenever you mention to just give the laser regular machine guns, people just assume they're going to be dog shit. Which, you know what, I guess I can't blame them for thinking that when Rockstar doesn't have the best track record of making powerful vehicle machine guns. I mean, just look at every helicopter after the Annihilator and Buzzard. Just not very good. The machine guns were just never that powerful ever again. But no, just because the guns aren't explosive, that doesn't mean they can't be extremely deadly. Explosions aren't a requirement for that. And while sure, it's not going to be a good tank killer anymore because the tanks have so much bullet resistance in this game, any unarmored vehicles, people, or aircraft still get absolutely decimated by these machine guns. Looking at the proposed stats here, it's a combination of the machine guns you see on the Smuggler's Run planes and the original laser cannons. We keep the same fire rate as the cannons, but we take out the explosive factor, increase the damage and range to match the Smuggler's Run machine guns, along with the weapon flags, and voila, powerful machine guns. A change like this would absolutely switch up the dynamic of free mode because no longer would people grief with this aircraft. It would just not be feasible to kill people on foot with regular machine guns in a jet. It would be far too difficult. So they'd have to find another vehicle to use for that or just use aircraft bombs. They'd have to get good at that. Which is honestly what free mode needs, a nice shake-up in the meta of only seeing explosive cannon jets being used. However, for strictly vehicle combat and dogfighting, these guns would still be a very scary thing to go up against, especially with the increased range. Just look at how long a Hydra lasts against these guns. Yeah, about 0.01 seconds. So in terms of viability against aircraft, these guns would actually be better than the cannons because the damage is near identical, but you have that added range and the ability to shoot people out of their planes, which would also be a lot easier because of the super fast fire rate. So it's an interesting concept for sure, and if it were up to me, it would either be this one or the previous concept that would make its way into the final game as a good nerf or rework to the cannons. But let me know what you guys think about each of these concepts in the comments. Which do you think would be the best fit for a laser nerf? Or maybe if you had another idea in mind, comment it down below as well. It's also worth noting that the Savage actually has a separate cannon from the Lazer and Hydra. The Hydra and Lazer utilize the exact same weapon in the meta files, which is the reason why if you change the cannon, it affects both aircraft. But on the Savage, it's actually a separate gun entirely. I had thought originally they all used the same one, so they could keep the Savage the same way. And honestly, if they did, it wouldn't really be a big issue anyways, because it's a helicopter, and we all know how those are. Not to mention the Savage is one of the most notoriously slow and least agile helicopters. So I feel like they could keep the cannon on the Savage. If you guys enjoyed the video or found it helpful, feel free to leave a like, as well as subscribe to my channel for more GTA Online content. I want to give a huge shout out to all my channel members for your support. If you'd like to become a member for some exclusive perks, you can either use the join button or the link that's down in the description. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great day.